Hurricanes can be incredibly hard on honeybee colonies, and I realize that we have viewers of these videos all around the world. Much of what I say specifically about hurricanes can actually be relevant to other natural disasters that your honeybee colonies might experience. But I really wanted to focus on hurricanes because they're such a problem for us here in Florida, a lot of the Gulf states up the East Coast, and many states around the U.S. and countries around the world, you have your version of hurricanes. I think there's a lot that you can consider and know and take home to ensure that your colonies are as prepared as you possibly can be should a major storm like this show up at your apiary. I want to start by saying there are really three big general issues that happen to colonies during hurricane events, right? I want to think about water, wind, and aftermath. How do those three things come together in a hurricane? Well, hurricanes bring lots of water. Lots and lots of water. If you're close to the center of the storm and on some of the outer bands of the storm, it might dump inches and inches, centimeters upon centimeters of water on your apiaries. Rain in and of itself is not that bad for bees, but if you keep bees in low-lying areas, it could flood the colonies. If you keep bees close to the coast, you can get storm surge from all of this movement of the hurricane. So water can be problematic. Flooding areas and storm surges as a result of the power of the hurricane and the wind associated with it. Now let's go into the wind. Wind is a problem because it can blow hives over. It can blow things onto hives, such as trees or other buildings or structures. It can blow things into hives if you have loose debris in the apiary. So wind damage is a really big issue with honeybee colonies during hurricanes. And most people then, when they think about hurricane damage, they think wind and rain, wind and water, but they don't think about the aftermath of hurricanes. Imagine for a second that you've got an apiary of 10 colonies or even 100 colonies. The math still works. You've got these 10 colonies. Let's say that only 3 of them blow over. That means it's very possible that there's hive parts on the ground, attracting in small hive beetles. It's very possible also in the aftermath of these issues that the storm surge or the water or the wind damaged plants that should be blooming next week or next month, or even in some cases next year if enough salt water pushes into areas that can damage the forage next year and beyond. The aftermath then of the hurricane can be quite significant. It's getting hives back together. It's ensuring that they have the food resources, and it's making sure that all their diseases and pest and queen-related issues that might result from all of this wind and water and aftermath are taken into account as you're trying to put your life back together. I want to spend now then a little bit of time talking about things that you can do to help in hurricanes, but I want to give you a couple of disclaimers. Hurricanes can be incredibly powerful. Sometimes even the best preparation will not prepare your colonies for what is to come. Just keep that in mind. What I'm going to give you are simply tips. They'll help in many of the circumstances, but not in all the circumstances. The second tip I want to give you, or the second piece of information that's a disclaimer before we get started really into the tips. Your life matters, and your family's life matters, and your pets' lives matter. You really need to do first what's going to ensure that you are safe. I am not suggesting in this video that you stay behind and take care of your bee colonies. You need to follow all local ordinances, rules, recommendations, and regulations that will be coming out from government entities and other safety-oriented personnel. If you can't be in an area, get out of the area. You know, bees are important. You love bees. That's why you're watching these videos. I love bees. That's why I'm making these videos. But in reality, you need to take care of yourself first. So be safe in hurricanes. And assuming that you've done all of that and you're able to anticipate the hurricane coming, you've been given enough lead time and it's safe to do so, here are some things that you can keep in mind to better prepare your colonies to withstand. And a lot of these are just based on the fact that hurricanes bring wind, hurricanes bring water, and then there's the aftermath of dealing with those two things. So as I go through these different tips, think about how they relate to wind, water, or the aftermath. Number one, Keep your colonies out of low-lying areas that are prone to flooding. There's a couple of ways to think about this. If you live close to the coast, the storm surge itself can come in and damage colonies. If you're further from the coast, but keeping your bee colonies close to streams or rivers or lakes, those areas can flood because of the volume of rain that will be coming in. Even if you're not close to those things, you can still keep bee colonies in areas that are just simply too low, that accumulate all of this water that will be associated with the hurricane. Keep your colonies out of low-lying areas. Don't keep colonies under trees, especially during hurricane season. Not only is the wind a problem for falling trees because it can knock down tree branches or push trees down, but the rain is also a problem. When you get wet, saturated ground, it does not take much wind to push trees over. If you keep colonies directly underneath trees, you're going to potentially have falling branches, you might have falling trees, and all of this makes it difficult to rescue that colony later when you're finally allowed back into the area. You may be cutting trees off of hives, you may be scrambling to get to these places, and it can be very difficult. Think also about securing your hives. Remember, beehives are just stacks of boxes. Sure, bees have glued all that together with tree saps and resins that we call propolis, but that stuff's only so good against strong winds. It can blow lids off of hives, it can push hives over. Here at the University of Florida Honeybee Research and Extension Laboratory, we like to run ratchet straps over the entire hive, just around the entire hive, and ratchet it down to hold all the hive components together. Then if hives share a stand with other hives, we like to push those hives together to create more mass. And we might strap around multiple hives together. Once we do that, we might consider strapping our hives physically to the stand itself if the stand is sufficiently strong. If it's not, we'll do something that we consider much easier to do, which is take these metal posts. Here in the US, we call them T-posts, like the letter T, because when you look down on the post, it's the shape of a T. You can take these metal T-posts and drive them right beside the hives on either side so that you can strap your hive to that metal T-post, which will keep it from falling, even sometimes if a tree branch falls at all. So strapping hives together with one another and to T-posts can really secure those hives and make them less likely to fall off the stand. We still like to keep them on the stands because the stands can be a really good way to combat a few feet, maybe a meter as an example of accumulating water. But really we secure for the purpose of keeping them from falling over. Next, you want to think about things that may blow into hives. Of course, I've already talked about trees falling on hives, branches falling on hives, but hurricane force winds can also move debris. It can blow hive lids off of one hive and smack another hive. If there's equipment in the yard, it can be blown into hives and cause them to be pushed over. If you use external feeders, either on top of the hive or at the entrance of the hive, the wind can blow those off and move them all around the yard. So this recommendation then is just remove all of the things that might blow around in the yard, the debris, the external feeders, etc. The next two recommendations deal with this concept of flooding and rain. And those recommendations are tilting your hive forward. That's the first one. And the second is consider using a screen bottom board when it might flood in the area. Why do I say this? Well, think about these flood waters that are coming up. If you don't have time to go out and move bees and they're in a flood-prone area, you've got these flood waters that potentially come up. Tilting your hive forward means that when the flood waters eventually recede, you can get that water getting out of the hive or off the lid and not rolling back into the hive and accumulating. Having screen bottom boards will allow those hives to drain quickly. Another thing that I've seen commercial beekeepers in Florida have to deal with is as flood waters rise, the bees' front entrance is blocked, and now they can't get out of the hive. So as the flood waters rise, the bees keep getting pushed to the top and to the top and to the top of the supers, where they ultimately suffocate and ultimately cannot get out. So a lot of commercial beekeepers like to ensure an upper entrance during hurricane season so the colony can escape the nest if it's needed. These are really important tips that you can use to prepare, but keep in mind, hurricanes knock down buildings. They knock down trees. Sometimes there's only so much that you can do to ready your hives. So assuming a hurricane has come through, now what? Again, follow local rules and regulations associated with you moving back into that area. Make sure you take care of you and your personal belongings and personal property and your friends and family, all of that stuff first. Again, follow local ordinances. But when it is possible for you to go back into your apiary, there's a few things that you keep in mind. The first thing that you need to think about is you may have to reassemble hives. Go to the apiary prepared to put hives back together. There may be hives on the ground, there may be hives laying around, hives tilted, hives bumping into one another. Just go back with the mindset that you're going to be putting hives back together. You might want to take some spare equipment, lids, supers, things like that, to be ready to reassemble in case some of those things have washed away. Keep in mind, especially in areas where small hive beetles are present, smushed combs and honey and propolis and bee brood and bees clustering up here inaccessible to these other things. All of this is a great place for small hive beetles and other nest scavengers to move in. So you might have these things to deal with. Be thinking about disease control and pest control and making sure that your colonies have queens when you reassemble everything. And even after the hurricane's done, think food, because this wind and rain can impact floral resources available for your bees. You may have to feed. Again, it can be a traumatic time. Hurricanes are a terrible thing. Lots of natural disasters are hugely problematic for beekeepers, but hopefully something that I share with you will help you get as ready as you can and hopefully ensure that your colonies can be as ready as they can be if that natural disaster comes. I hope you never experience it, but if you do, maybe something I've shared with you will get you ready to get your bees back up to working condition. Be safe out there.